Here are the biggest lottery myths out there according to the North American Association of State and Provincial Lotteries. We'll go through the myths they say they debunked, and we'll tell you if they actually did it. Number 11. Alternate tax. According to the NASPL, it's a myth that, quote, lottery is a form of taxation. They point out the fact that ordinary citizens have no option but to pay their taxes. They also nicely point out that people who do not pay taxes can be locked up behind bars. All this is true. They then point out that playing the lottery is entirely voluntary. Buying a lottery ticket is an individual choice, just like buying anything else. The only consequence to not playing the lottery is missing some fun and possibly a prize. They then bring up the argument that some people argue that the lottery is an implicit tax because it has, quote, higher administrative costs. Opponents argue that the lottery is a less efficient way of raising money. They counter and say that state lottery revenues go for education and other state-supported programs just like any other tax money does. And the last statement they say is that the lottery is simply a form of entertainment that happens to benefit your state. We do agree with them that technically the lottery isn't a form of taxation. Other forms of this myth is that the lottery is a tax on the poor because they're the people that play the most. True, playing the lottery is a choice, but poor people are still the biggest group that plays the lottery the most. The NASPL also conveniently left out the research that shows when states have lotteries, the allocation of taxpayer dollars that goes towards education actually goes down. That's because politicians will reallocate those dollars elsewhere since the lottery money is going towards education. So it's a wash at best, and at worst, education suffers because the lottery has a down year. Speaking of poor people, that brings us to number 10. Prey on the poor. Next on their list is the myth that lotteries prey on the poor and lottery purchases are made mostly by low-income people. They first start by stating that people from all walks of life and all income levels play the lottery. We can't disagree there. According to them, U.S. players bought more than $83 billion in traditional lottery products in 2019. So they use that figure to make the argument of, quote, clearly the industry did not achieve sales of that magnitude by focusing on low-income players. They point out that they market their games to society as a whole, just like any other business selling a product in a competitive marketplace. They then give out stats for Americans in different income brackets playing the lottery. They say that, quote, a recent Virginia study found that 55% of people who play the lottery at least once a month have incomes of $55,000 or more. A third of people who play at least once a month have incomes of $85,000 or more. And in Michigan, 43% of players have incomes of $50,000 or more, and 75% have incomes of $25,000 or more. They also brought up a national study by Vision Critical. They found that 44% of lottery players have incomes of $55,000 or more, and 77% have incomes of $25,000 or more. We say that we'll take their statistics at face value, but statistics can almost back up any side of an argument with qualifiers put on them. For example, this Bankrate national study shows that people who make less than $30K play the lottery the most. So technically, the lottery is not mostly made up of the lowest income Americans, but they're the biggest group. So it just depends on how you word the myth. They also bring up the zip code studies. That's when you take a certain zip code, look at total lottery sales in that area, and then assume that everyone in it has the same income and don't buy lottery tickets elsewhere. Of course, people don't always buy their tickets in the neighborhoods where they live. We'll agree with them there. Plenty of people buy tickets on their way to work, while shopping, or on vacation. They're right that zip code studies failed to take this into account. Number 9. No benefits. Here's the next myth they debunk. You get nothing for your lottery purchase if you don't win a prize, and since there are relatively few winners, hardly anyone actually benefits from the lottery. So they bring up the fact that all residents benefit financially from having a lottery in their state. They then list the many possibilities of how a state can choose to spend its lottery revenue, such as towards education, economic development, and the environment. It's hard to disagree with this strange myth that they chose to bring up. However, if we reword it as whether playing the lottery is good for individual players in the long run, all things considered, we'd say it's a net negative for the vast majority of players. Without lotteries, they point out that states would have to pay for these programs with taxes. Now that's definitely true. According to them, on average across the US, for every dollar spent on traditional lottery tickets, roughly 25 cents goes to the programs that the lottery support. Roughly 64 cents goes back to the players and prizes. They then put in a shameless reminder of playing the lottery with this statement of why players play. They say, quote, "Lotteries provide fun and exciting entertainment that lets players dream about what they would do if they won. In our stressful world, the ability to dream is well worth the price of a lottery ticket." We wonder, what about all the lottery players who have won a jackpot and lost it all? Would they go through that again? We do have to admit, it seems that with more information and resources available for winners, the percentage of jackpot winners going broke will probably start trending down. Number 8, money kept. Here they bring up the myth of the lottery makes and keeps all the money. They claim that on average, roughly 95% of funds generated from traditional lottery games goes directly back into the economy through, quote, prizes, public beneficiaries, and retailer commission. Basically, they're going over the same thing as what we just talked about in the last myth. We're not sure why they specifically brought up retail commissions, because why would the average player care that the random place they bought the ticket from got some money as well? Basically, here they further break down where each dollar goes. So 6 cents of each dollar typically goes to retailers. The rest, which is around 5 cents, goes towards running the lottery. According to NASPL, U.S. lotteries generated more than $25 billion for beneficiaries in 2019. We agree it's easy to see that not all the money goes to the lottery commission. Number 7, compulsive gambling. Here they break down the myth compulsive gambling has grown because of lotteries. The NASPL claims that there's little evidence linking lotteries to gambling problems. They say that gambling helplines throughout North America report very few callers who say that lotteries are the source of their problem. While that may be true, that doesn't mean lotteries don't contribute to the problem. But researchers at Curtin University in Australia say otherwise. They published a paper in the international journal Addictive Behaviors. They identified lottery scratch-off tickets as being especially appealing to problem gamblers, even though the NASPL brought up a study from the University of Minnesota that shows that less than 1% of compulsive gamblers said the lottery was their preferred game. This doesn't mean that the number of people who have gambling problems hasn't grown because of lotteries. They also bring up a national survey on gambling behavior done by the University of Chicago. They concluded that, quote, "It does not appear that the availability of a lottery has an impact on problem gambling prevalence rate." Basically, the Lottery Association is trying to shift the blame to other forms of gambling. They point out that there was a study that basically asked the opinion of 2,274 kids. It found that these kids mostly associated gambling problems with other forms of gambling, such as card games, casino gambling, or sports betting. But what does how kids feel about what activities they associate with gambling problems have to do with anything? They then bring up studies that show that the rate of gambling problems is keeping stable, but that still doesn't disprove the statement compulsive gambling has grown because of lotteries. Number 6, internet lottery sales and retailers. Here they bring up the myth if lottery sales are allowed on the internet, retailers will lose considerable sales. Clearly, they're advocating selling lottery tickets on the internet. Lottery sales online is relatively new to the US, and they point out that it's a staple in other countries. Obviously, being able to buy lottery games online is a growth opportunity for state lotteries. They're able to attract a wider audience and advertise to people who don't normally play the lottery. Of course, lottery retailers are not happy with this development, so it's probably why they specifically put this myth on their website. They're saying that they can create even more sales opportunities for retailers, such as online play only, gift cards that are available only at local retailers, or rewarding online players with free ticket coupons that have to be redeemed at retailers. If you ask us, it's dumb to make things harder for players to play the lottery online just to keep retailers happy, but that's just us. They go on to say that online games have been a proven success in other countries and is a way to get more US customers to play by, quote, attracting new and younger players to all lottery games. Well, okay then. Not much to disagree with here. They're right. If they do more online games, they can advertise to more people. Number 5, internet lottery sales and kids. And here they continue talking about about internet lottery sales and how it'll affect kids. They say that it's a myth that, quote, if lottery sales are allowed on the internet, compulsive and underage gambling will rise. Then they argue that online lottery sales are a more responsible platform. It's because they're able to limit daily, weekly, and monthly deposit limits that address how much a player can put in their account for playing. Okay, we'll give them that they can track and limit how much someone can gamble, and yes, there's no way they can track how much someone spends at a retailer. But how does that address compulsive underage gambling? They do mention tough age verification measures and registration to make sure kids are not playing, but let's be for real. Kids are smart, and they'll figure out the ways to get around verification if they really want to. Will underage gambling rise with kids? Maybe. What do you think? Number 4, Lottery Security Part 1. Here they address the myth that a lot of players have, which is, quote, there's no assurance that lottery drawings are conducted fairly. This one we actually agree with. They're trying to make lottery drawings as fair as possible and make sure no rigging is done whatsoever. Because as soon as they lose the trust of the players, no one will play. They have 100% incentive to make sure players keep playing as much as possible. They say that official lottery drawings are carefully watched, closely scrutinized. And that's something we agree with. All state lotteries are subject to internal and independent audits to verify that the equipment process are providing random results. The NASPL go on and state that equipment used for drawings is regularly tested and procedures are recorded on video in the presence of witnesses. In addition, the machines are securely stored, often in a locked vault, and accessed only by a limited number of authorized personnel. Not much to disagree with here. Number 3, Lottery Winner Curse. Here they tackle a big problem. They claim that it's a myth that, quote, big lottery winners are worse off than if they had not won the lottery. Here's how they tackle this myth. Without any reference to any research, the NASPL says that history shows vast majority of lottery winners make positive long-term decisions they're winning. So yeah, they haven't exactly debunked this myth. They then go on and give examples of how winners positively use their money, such as investing for retirement, saving for their kids' education, and donating to charity. They then give a blanket statement about how lottery money isn't any different than any other large source of income that someone may get, such as an inheritance or the sale of a business. We don't even know where to begin here. We've covered extensively on the channel about how a huge amount of money can affect people psychologically. Yes, they're right. Lottery money is just like any other money. The key factor is whether someone is used to that amount of money before. And it doesn't take research to figure out most people are not used to getting millions of dollars at a time. Now, do most winners go broke? The commonly thrown out figure of 70% of lottery winners go broke is most likely a myth, but their statement of, quote, the vast majority of lottery winners make positive long-term decisions with their winnings is something that cannot be substantiated either. They then go on to say that, quote, perhaps it's just human nature that causes us to remember those bad examples rather than positive. If you've been following this channel for a long time, then you'll know that there are plenty of people who have had bad outcomes when it comes to lottery wins. Click here to find out more. Number 2, Lottery Security Part 2. At number 2, they tackle this interesting myth. Apparently, some people believe, quote, because state governments benefit from lottery proceeds, they cannot be trusted to regulate their industry. This myth is really easy to debunk. If states want more money, they can just increase taxes. Of course, people would eventually leave if taxes rise to a level they don't agree with, but that's beside the point. Because state governments do want people to play the lottery, they need the trust of players, and they again have every incentive to make sure the industry is run ethically. The NASPL brings up the good argument that we trust state politicians to make their own tax policy. They also bring up the fact that lottery files are public record and open to scrutiny by the media and by any citizen. Lottery board meetings and legislative hearings are also open to the public. Number 1, lottery scams. And for the final myth, the NASPL tackles lottery scams. They make it known that it's a complete myth for anyone having to pay money to get a prize. If you're a subscriber, we know that you already knew not to do this. Click to watch one of these next videos.